Hello and welcome back to another FPL team selection video. We're a couple hours out from the Game Week 27 deadline and we have a lot to talk about today because we are only 2 weeks away now from blank Game Week 29, and I wanted to go over all of the plans and reasoning behind some of the transfers that I'm going to be looking to making to prepare for that. Of course, I don't want to be using my free hit chip in Game Week 29. I want to save that for what looks like the bigger blank game week in Game Week 34. So I'm going to be trying to navigate that as best as possible, and I want to talk about the transfers that I'm going to be looking to be making. So if you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like on it, make sure to subscribe as well if you are new. But before we jump into everything, we're going to take a quick look at last week's points. Now, last week I was very much, hemming and hawing over bringing in Brian and Buemo, and the only way I was going to be able to do that was by taking a hit. So I opted against it. Obviously I did speak about how I didn't really want to bench anyone that I had in midfield or attack last week. The main one that would have been benched last week was Bruno Fernandes. So with Mbuemo's 14 pointer, again, if I'd have took the hit anyway, it wouldn't have made any difference whatsoever. I would have got the exact same points. So even though it was kind of disappointing to see Mbuemo pick up a 14 pointer when I could have had him, Bruno picking up a 10 pointer was just as nice. So I get to keep Bruno now for what is probably better fixtures than Mbuemo, as well as a nice one against Ipswich this week, and then he obviously plays Leicester away from home in Game Week 29, and hopefully he can be a nice little differential for me because he is not very highly owned at the minute. Again, the rest of the team was pretty much carried by a few big hauls. Mohamed Salah, as always, seems to be carrying the team. Isak picking up a 13 pointer was quite nice, and then of course Wisa done really nice with that 8 pointer. Surprise, surprise, I started Jimenez again and he blanks, which basically just continues on the season-long streak of playing him, blanking him, and then benching him, and he gets a big haul. So yeah, it just seems to be the way that things are going. Obviously our 50-50 last week was between Castagne and Trent Alexander-Arnold. Castagne had almost double the clean sheet odds as Trent did. Wasn't expecting Trent really to get an attack and return against Man City, which he didn't, but unfortunately those clean sheet odds didn't come to anything, and Liverpool obviously were the one that kept the clean sheet away to Man City, which I wasn't expecting at all, so I can't really complain too much. Again, 5-point swing there isn't the end of the world. Would have been quite nice to catch it, but that's alright. So in terms of plans for Game Week 29, I put together what I think would be a good, realistic Game Week 29 team, and this is what I think could be a decent, aim. I'm going to talk about how that's not going to be possible in just a little minute, but this was basically what I put together, with a few of the players that I've already got, and just ideal players that I would like to have. So we've got Chris Wood and we've got Cunha, probably the two best strikers available for Game Week 29, away to Ipswich and away to Cunha, away to Southampton. The midfield's really nice as well, with Palmer, Fernandes and Buemo, Kluivert and Dango doubling up on Bournemouth. And then the defenders, there's not really too many good options that I did find. Gabriel and Kerkez, I feel like two nice ones, and then I threw in Milenkovic in there, of course, hoping for that clean sheet against Ipswich away from home. Already got Pickford as well. So that's kind of, just to give myself a rough estimate of what I could try and aim for. The value of the team is 74 million, so that gives plenty of value on the bench. We've already spoke about trying to keep Mohamed Salah and Alexander Isak, which is why this team isn't going to be possible, but I'm just going to talk about that in a little second. So in terms of trying to bring this team together as early as possible, I've got the list of fixtures from this point going forward to Game Week 29 and trying to figure out when the best time to bring some of these players could be. So obviously half the team, as you can see by the owned boxes on the right hand side, are in green. It means I've already owned them, already have them. So we're really only looking at what the best time to bring in those grey players is. Now obviously Milenkovic is in there as one of the ideal players for Game Week 29, but very, very difficult fixtures over the next two matches. Arsenal at home and Man City at home does rule him out as a potential transfer early on, which means I'm going to be wanting to use a transfer in Game Week 29 to bring him in. Now that also applies to Chris Wood. Obviously right now I've got Isak up front, who doesn't have a game. I've got Raul Jimenez, and I've got Wisa as well. Wouldn't want to be bringing any of those guys out to bring in Chris Wood against either Arsenal or Man City. So that means I've got 2 transfers that have to be used in game week 29, and that's going to be bringing in my 2 Forest players. Now, I have rolled a transfer last week, which means between now and game week 29, I'm going to have 4 transfers to make. 2 of them obviously being used in game week 29 to bring in the Forest players. So that means this week and next week I have 2 transfers to use and try and bring in as many of these players as I possibly can. Looking further down the list, Mbeumo is in there as well. Ideally, I would like to get him in. I've been speaking about it for weeks. I brought out Flecken in game week 24 in order to get Mbeumo, because obviously I've got Valdemarson on the bench and I already own Wisa. So Mbeumo is another one that I would really like to get in. Again, Rodgers would be the alternative, who doesn't have a match that week. So Rodgers to Mbeumo makes sense. Kluivert I've already got, and then we've got Dango as the 5th midfielder. But what I did realise is, obviously, if I'm wanting to keep Mohamed Salah, obviously there's a lot of value stored up in Salah. I don't want to take him out and lose all that and then have to buy him back at a big premium price, which does leave me in a situation where I can only play 4 midfielders, because Salah's going to have to stay in the team because I don't want to miss out on that value. So that means I'm only going to have 4 playable midfielders. Now, the same thing applies to Isak. Again, I've got about $1 million stored in value. I bought him at 8.5 million. He's now 9.5 million, and I don't want to be getting rid of him to then buy him back in game week 30 or 31 for, again, the premium price. Which means, again, I'm only going to be able to have 2 fielded strikers. So with 4 midfielders and 2 strikers, it means I'm going to have 4 defenders for game week 29. And I obviously just mentioned the fact that I don't really think there's too many great defensive options in game week 29. But in order to keep Salah and Isak, I'm going to have to try a 4-4-2. So as it currently stands, this is my team at the minute, with no transfers made, and this is what it would look like heading into game week 29. Now, obviously, you can see with the bench, Salah and Isak are going to have to be there, and then Trent is also on there as well. Obviously, he can be sold for, budget if it is needed, but as it stands, I basically need to make 3 moves to, have a full 11 for game week 29. Now, obviously, I've just mentioned bringing in Chris Wood. He can be my 4th transfer. So I only need 3 moves. I've got 4 between now and game week 29, which means either Jimenez or Wissa can come out for, again, either Chris Wood or Cunha. I can decide that closer to the time. Obviously, Milenkovic has to come in as well. So in game week 29, one of Castagne or Moreno, more likely to be Moreno, as he does not play ever. He's going to be coming out, and then Milenkovic will be coming in. So that leaves me with Rodgers and Castagne to try and get rid of for this week and next week to try and get the best team possible. However, for this week's move, I want to get rid of Rodgers, bring in a new midfielder, whether that's Mbeumo, who's playing against Everton at home. That would be ideal, obviously basing it off the team we just showed for game week 29. That would be a good move this week. Can bring in Mbeumo to play against Everton. However, I don't have the budget to do that on its own, and that would require taking out Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, I did speak last week about potentially bringing in Cucurella. He's got Southampton at home and Leicester at home in the next 2 matches, but what that would mean is bringing in Cucurella, who plays against Arsenal away from home in game week 29, which isn't going to be ideal because he's not a player that I want to be starting. And of course, Trent also plays against Southampton at home next week, so I want to try and keep him as much as possible. So in order to take Rodgers out this week, I need to take out Trent as well, which I don't really want to do when he's got Southampton next week. Now, what did come available was this move right here on the left, and I had the perfect budget last night to move Rodgers on to Jared Bowen. Now, Jared Bowen plays against Leicester at home this week, so he's got the better fixture than Mbeumo, and he also plays in game week 29, probably a little bit more of a difficult fixture, or on the same playing field as Mbeumo. He plays against Everton away, whereas Mbeumo plays against Bournemouth away in 29, so I feel like there's an opportunity there for me just to make that free transfer this week. It means I'm not going to have Mbeumo for game week 29, but it means I can keep Trent Alexander-Arnold for the Southampton match next next week, which is essentially going to be a guaranteed clean sheet. And obviously you would hope for an attacking return as well. Again, I would love to get someone like Cucurella in this week as a big differential. Now that I've not brought him in, he's probably going to go and bag a 15 to 20 pointer. But yeah, I think it just makes the most sense for my team. Jumped on the Bowen bandwagon, which is a big thing this week. I think Bowen's been the second highest transferred player in so far this week, but yeah, I had the perfect budget to do it. Means I only need to use one free transfer. I can roll my transfer next week, and then I can make my 3 moves in game week 29 to fully prepare for the blank. Now, obviously, Wisa and Moreno coming out for Wood and Milenkovic, and then I just need one more defender, in which case I just went for 8 Nuri. Now, he is obviously out with a bit of a concern now, potential injury, but we've still got, 2.5 weeks until game week 29, and if he's unfit, I can always just move to someone else. I think I've got a 5 million budget to go to any defender really, so there is going to be plenty of options when that time does come around. So with those moves, this is pretty much what my team is going to be looking like for game week 29. I do still have Castagne on the bench playing against Spurs. He is always an option if one of my players, gets pulled up in the warm-up or something to one of their matches. But the rest of the team is looking really, really nice. Again, Jimenez and Wisa can interchange. By game week 29, maybe one of them gets injured or we'll have a different view on it. Either of them can come out for Chris Wood. But that leaves me with Wood and Jimenez up front in game week 29. A really nice midfield with Palmer, Bruno Fernandes, Kluivert and Bowen. Great defence as well, considering the fact that I need to play 4 in defence in order to keep Salah and Isak. We've got 4 very, very capable defenders, and obviously Jordan Pickford is playing against West Ham at home as well, so it does kind of counteract with Bowen a little bit, but it means I'm covering both bases. So that's the plan for game week 29. I know it isn't really too much of a game week 27 team selection video, but I wanted to give some insight as to how I'm really looking to navigate the next few weeks, and hopefully that did help if you were a little bit confused or maybe you needed some ideas for your own team. But with that being said, looking back to this week, game week 27, this is how the team is going to look. Still carrying over a free transfer, which is going to get rolled again. Next week, Jarrod Bowen is in the team to play against Leicester at home, and that's probably one of the most dangerous midfields I've seen for my team in a long time. Newcastle at home for Mohamed Salah, and then the other 3 matches, Southampton at home, Ipswich at home and Leicester at home for my 3 midfielders, is looking really nice. Isak is getting played against Liverpool away. I feel like he's just a permanent starter at this point. Everton at home for Wisa and Wolves away for Jimenez playing against his ex-team. I'm benching Kluivert, again a little bit of a benching headache that I did have, but I'm not really too worried about that. There is obviously a little bit of concern as to whether to play Kluivert or Jimenez, but Brighton are a better defence than Wolves have been this season, both away from home as well. So going to go for Jimenez. They're both on penalties, so there was no real difference with them. It does feel like a little bit of a 50-50. This week does feel as though it's going to be another week of poor defences. Pickford against Brentford away, Gabriel, Nottingham Forest away as well. Kerkez, I can't see keeping a clean sheet away to Brighton either, so the defence could be a little bit of a problem, but I'm really hoping that the midfield and attack can carry me on this week. But that does round it off for this week's team selection and game week 29 plans. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe as well if you are new. Let me know down in the comments what you think of the plan. Is it a good idea, or would you do something a little bit different? So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.